All right, so today I want to spend some time talking about becoming a desirable partner for your horse. And whether we're co-facilitating sessions with them officially or not, there's a great opportunity to have every interaction with our horse leave us in a better spot and also leave our horses in a better spot. And there's a couple veins of inspiration that I had to do this call. One of them was we had our girls' adventure. I think it was about a year ago when we saw the movie Down the Fence. And yeah, and I remember I was a little on the fence about seeing Down the Fence until in the trailer there was this little snippet of one of the girl trainers, the females, and she was very emotional in talking about how if there were, if all the trainers were in a line, she would want the horses to come and pick her. And you know, that spoke to my heart. That was enough for me to be like, yes, I am in. I need to see this movie because it's speaking my language. And you know, it's interesting enough that little snippet never showed in the movie. But you know, it was a fun time with the girls, and I'm very glad that I went. But that sentiment really touches me, and I really want to be that person that the horses want to work with. And another thing that came to mind when I was thinking about doing this was I have my best friend is a very accomplished dressage rider. And at the time she had an older horse she was keeping at a friend's house. And also there was a horse that had done a lot of dressage, and now I forget what physical challenge he has, but he couldn't really do that anymore. But she wanted me to come out and experience flying lead changes because I had never had the opportunity to do that. So, you know, she was talking me through, coaching me, and I got a couple of the lead changes from him. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And then I was trotting around on him, just kind of playing and, you know, having my little victory party. And I asked her, because I felt his back kind of loosen and start to be softer underneath me. And I asked her, oh my gosh, does he look happier now? How does his eye look? And she was like, oh, I never would have thought to ask that question. And it kind of, I was reflecting on it later, and it struck me as funny because, you know, I think she loves horses just as much as I do. And kind of how we get taught as riders and horse people sometimes, why wasn't that thought brought to our attention more often? So I really am hoping to be able to bring more awareness for us, you know, as what we've got going on, and then some more awareness of what the horses are really experiencing. Because I think, you know, we have obviously a deep appreciation for horses, and sometimes when we put our human framework on top of what we're inviting the horses to do with us, we can forget how different their world is. Because as prey animals, survival is their number one priority. And, you know, oftentimes something that's, oh, well, it's just a rock or it's just a shadow, we can forget sometimes when we get really linearly focused on what their world is. You know, the other day I was taking a little video. I called Petey, and he came up off the round bale, and he started walking towards me. And what I really noticed was he didn't walk in a direct line to me. He kind of tacked, like when you sail, you tack across to pick up, I don't know, the best pieces of the wind. I don't remember all the terminology and stuff. And, you know, I don't know if it's because he was switching between each eye or why, but horses don't necessarily get to their goal, whatever it is in their mind, the same way that we do. And it doesn't mean that, you know, he didn't want to come in, because obviously he kept coming all the way to me. It didn't mean that, you know, he was shiny. That's just his manner of getting there. And kind of taking that philosophy and looking at where the horse is and what they offer, I think allows us to capture on the real magic of their wisdom. Because also, as prey animals, they are wired to be drawn to alignment or to release tensions and have those responses. So when we are getting closer to a truth for us and bring our body, mind, and spirit into alignment, you know, the horses will react in some ways that you can't even make up, because they're wired to respond to those things. And so I think another helpful image is when we're working with our horses, to think of that image of a clock with no hands. Because again, horses, they're wired differently, and I can't at all say how a horse thinks, but I can definitely say from really immersing myself in a few years of holding a space for them, offering them that opportunity to release tension and to respond to an invitation, it's taught me some pretty amazing things. And it also is such a great lesson in self-awareness, because, you know, I have a little bit of a luxury in that I don't have any pressing goals of entering a show. I don't train horses for people, you know, that I have to reach a certain goal in 30, 60, 90 days. The horses, the more that I really notice where they are and where I am, the more it helps me on this deep dive of figuring out how we can help each other be able to be more who we're supposed to be, in essence, and use the interactions that we have to both of us get to a better place. Because I completely subscribe to the idea that if in a healing session both the horse and the person are not benefiting, then it's not working. And I think I would love, in the horse industry in general, but even in the healing world, a lot of us are really drawn to what we would consider the sentient nature of horses, but we're not really shown a lot of opportunities on how to capitalize that and how to capture it and draw it into the sessions. And so, you know, one of the very first ways is for us to keep ourselves in the present moment. And, you know, horses with simply their size offer us a great opportunity to be in the present moment. Because if I'm not paying attention to what's going on around me when I'm by this almost 1,000-pound animal, it's very likely that either one of us could get into an unsafe situation, or, you know, I could get stepped on, I could get knocked over. Being aware of what's going on in those surroundings are going to keep both of us safe. And, you know, for some of us, it's challenging to be in the present moment. We have pressures of life. We have shopping lists. We have wounds. We have traumas. We have things that we're worried about happening in the future. You know, what if I don't get this job? Or what if this relationship goes this way? What if my kid makes bad choices? There's all kinds of things that our minds can run away with if we don't ground ourselves and offer that opportunity to have a landing place and be anchored into the present moment. And with our horses, again, that is where we really allow the beauty and magic to happen. Because like in the state of mindfulness, when we can open up to what is in front of us and really see what's going on with our horse, then we can scale our invitations to what they're capable of doing. And, you know, I think one of the best proofs, so to speak, that I have for taking the time to get to know our horses, to hold this space of possibility open for them. You know, my red horse, he used to, it would be a crapshoot when I would go out to the field if I could catch him. Because, you know, how things were set up, what I was offering him wasn't all that appealing. And, you know, it was something that I knew, but it took me a while to figure out how to get there because it wasn't taught mainstream. He is a strong horse physically and mentally. And now I completely see, and I had suspicions before, but I couldn't find many people to say, oh my gosh, yeah, he's worried about something, or he's not comfortable with something. That's why he's choosing to rip the lead rope out of your hand and run away. That's why when you get too close to him in certain areas of his body, he swishes his tail. Something wasn't comfortable. And in more of the mainstream horsemanship venue, I had a lot of things like, well, maybe it's time to bring the chain out over his nose because he needs to know who's boss. He needs to know that he has to do what you want. And those weren't all off base, because I really completely feel that what I had to do was let him know I could keep him safe and I could handle things. And so just that little twist on my perspective of what I was offering him, of what I was expecting him to be able to do, helped make it so now he will trot up to me, sometimes even canter when I come out into the field. And, you know, that is a very big difference that sometimes we either haven't been able to take the opportunity to investigate something like that, or it doesn't show up because if you're a trainer, that's not really how you make money. If you're in the show world, you know, there's not really any ribbons to be won. And again, you know, I'm fortunate because investigating this whole phenomenon and taking it deeper is how I have kind of made my profession be able to link into horses. So I don't have deadlines. I don't have to meet any performance expectation. And that, taking the pressure off, allows for a lot of freedom and a lot of beauty to come. And I've worked with a lot of people now to help them gain confidence with their horses, and really building the trust underneath of that is what allows them to be able to trust that, okay, this is a good day to do this with my horse. It's very likely that I've increased the likelihood that I will keep myself safe, keep my horse feeling safe, and then be able to plan what we do together from there. And there, you know, it really takes a lot of self-trust too. Speaking from personal experience, you know, being on this outlier journey of listening to the horse and taking these really small pieces and paying attention to them, where a lot of times they would have been overlooked. And an example of that being, you know, coming from the based in dressage world that I was, we didn't have groundwork. Our groundwork consisted of maybe getting our horse from the field, most likely getting it from a stall to the cross ties, getting it from the cross ties to the mounting block. That was it. I was a little bit of an outlier in that world too, because I did a lot of lunging, because I really like to be able to see what my horse looked like, and I couldn't do that from on their back. So it really helped put some pieces together. But now, since I don't use cross ties, I can take in more information. If I go to put a saddle on my horse and he moves away, all right, so there's something here that I'm choosing to fix or to alleviate. before I proceed with this goal of settling the horse and, maybe get to riding, maybe not. And, if before where I had the horse in cross ties or I felt this pressure that, okay, because where I came from, if you didn't ride your horse for an hour, 6 days a week, you might as well not own a horse. There was a little bit of a elitist attitude there. And, it's real hard, even though your heart's telling you one thing when you're engrossed in the spectrum, not to get a little bit swayed by it. And so, going back a little bit to our trust in ourselves, fortunately, I've got enough experience now and can be a little curmudgeon-y. Well, it doesn't matter when anybody else says. Yeah, I go to a clinic. Oh, my horse rears a little bit. Maybe I'm not going to continue riding him. I mean, that's a big and obvious case, but even if he moves away from the saddle, well, let me figure out, is it because he's got a physical tension? Can I help him with it that way? Or is it a mental tension because he's concerned that the saddle will hurt? So just taking the time to make that difference. I was working with a client a few months ago, and she had a pretty significant injury off this horse that we were working together with. And she told me that, he was tied to her trailer and he always just fidgeted around before she got the saddle on. And so I said, well, let's play with that a little bit. So I took and held the saddle and walked with him, because we've been taught well that horses don't follow what they're scared of. So did a little bit of that, kind of let him sniff the saddle a little bit. And then when I went to put it on him, he just stood there. And, it was such an insignificant amount of time, really, and such a small gesture, but it made such a difference. She was able to get on her horse and have a really nice ride. And I think it opened even more because we let the horse in his time get ready. When she got on him, they were really connected in a way that she was able to steer him pretty much with her intent, not with reins and legs and other aids. I mean, of course, they're on there and they help a little bit, but it set the stage up for a much, I'm going to say glorious, a much more glorious interaction, because their hearts were able to come together. So that is, one of the ways I think that we can just really make ourselves more appealing to our horses is when we keep them not only high on the priority list, but first. And it's not to say, again, we didn't completely abandon the idea of her riding. It was just, well, let's take some time and get to a different place and see what happens. And, again, that made just a phenomenal difference for the horses. And a lot of, I've really taken the idea of extending an invitation to the horses to quite a depth in the healing sessions, because, I'll have kind of a lesson planned in mind, so to speak, and go out and think, yeah, okay, well, it would be great to have this horse work with this person as they're kind of facing this issue. But if I go out there and pay attention to what the horses offer, oftentimes, because I've set that intent and they have this magical way of reading us, the horse that I had thought was going to be a great partner for that session might kind of move off and another one will approach. And that's where I'll pay attention and follow their lead. And usually they end up, offering something so much deeper, so much more profound that I could have thought to offer. For example, one time I went out, I had in mind, this was a first-time horse client, and I was going, my go-to girl, Annie, that is the most calm, nurturing horse I think I've ever met. And so this was going to be, you know, kind of the way that we eased into whatever we needed to. And so she and I, the client, went out and we were going to get Annie. And as we approached the field that Annie was in, she's in a herd I like to call the Three Wise Women. Missy, paint horse, she had her head hung over the fence, which that's not common for her. It is common for her, if you go in the field, to be one of the first, if not the first, to come up and say hi. But this was just a little different, so I paid attention to that. And then once we walked in, I was making my way over to get Annie. And Missy very gently kind of herded us away from Annie and kept standing. I was holding a halter, trying to put her nose in the rope. And Missy has a very strong personality, and she isn't necessarily who I would have chosen for a first time. All right, let's show you what this horse stuff is all about. But I listened to that, and it turned out that this client, having a session that really let her step into a secure place and to offer leadership that was based in compassion, yet very secure, what I like to call that gentle strength. She was able, I handed her the rope. Missy walked into the arena, which sometimes there's a lot of calling on Missy's part. There can be some rooting with her nose where she's trying to say where the two will go. And she did none of that. And she came into the arena and really gave us the most perfect example of being non-wavering in what's important to you. And she just followed the client around beautifully. And interestingly enough, she also let me know how close I had to be to the two of them to be able to support them. And all it was a blink of an eye and a flick of her ear. It sounds a little bit like Santa Claus in the night before Christmas, doesn't it? But just with those little responses, those cues, I was able to support her in supporting this client, which I think is just the most wonderful vocabulary to have. And, you know, talking a little bit about how horses can help us if we can help them feel, I'm going to call them traumas, because I think, not saying that every horse that we're going to come across and work with has been abused, but if they're highly sensitive or perceptive, as we like to call it, if depending on how keyed in they are and how much their nervous system will react, for some horses, being in a stall can almost be traumatizing. And a lot of times for them, they end up going into a shutdown, kind of a version of learned helplessness. All right, well, I'm just going to get through this. There's nothing I can do. I'll just endure. And when we start to take an interest in how they're reacting to things, because a horse that is a little more on the shutdown side, we can start to notice by how they will respond to things. Like, one of my favorite things to do right now is to put a halter rope on a horse, and without taking away the slack, just kind of moving away and inviting it energetically to come to me or to walk forward. And sometimes the horse just will follow, and sometimes they won't. And often when I'm standing there and holding the intent of this invitation, eventually the horse might start to blink, or there might be some ripples in the muzzle that show something is happening, it's processing. And then sometimes they might lick and chew, sometimes they might rebalance a little bit in their body, and then they will honor the request and move forward. And that's what I found. The more questions that I ask, or the more space that I hold open for them to accept those invitations in their time, the more that they will start to come out of that shell, kind of like, and communicate. And I think that's the wiring somehow relates to how we get when we've been traumatized. And because there's been kind of like a disruption in our authentic wiring. And the more that we can stay in the present moment, the more that we can't be jerked into a flashback or just recreating what we knew in that trauma. And again, the horse is offering us that opportunity to stay rooted and grounded in the present moment. The more that we do that, we're going to develop neural pathways, and the more challenging it will be, or that's not quite the right word, but the less we'll get pushed off into those ruts of the trauma. And so we can help recreate our neural network by interacting with the horses this way and giving them that space. Because with how horses, they really strive for balance. And I think I shared and posted that video of Phil Oakes with his horse on the teeter-totter. And without any direction or indication, the horse was trying to bring it into balance. And knowing that to be allowed to be in balance, a lot of times they're going to have to bring their bodies into alignment. And I've also noticed at time when I extend this invitation for horses to move forward, their bodies, they can be pointed in like 3 or 4 different directions. A hind leg might be pointed off to the right, a front leg might be pointed off to the left. Their spine might have some crookednesses. I think that's a word, in them. And so oftentimes before the horse takes a step, when the invitation is for them to do it in the way that works for them, they'll come into alignment before they move forward. And then oftentimes they'll release tension. They might lick and chew. They might yawn. They might blow out. So I think it's obviously just amazing to watch this happen, because the resilience that they have when you offer the opportunity for them to get back in balance, I think it really mimics ours also. And a lot of times just figuring out how to remove the limitations, how to remove the blocks, will allow our body's natural wisdom to get where we need to go. And I was playing around the other day saying that, I really believe that mindset is the foundational piece, whether it's just living our lives the way that we want to, or working with our horses, or even being on a journey to become a co-facilitator with horses to do the healing work. Mindset is where it starts. And I was also thinking, it has to be aligned with our heart. So then does it turn into heart set? So I was just kind of playing around with that a little bit, because that's my guiding force now, is what really resonates with my heart. And that's kind of want to do, I guess, a little bit of an announcement here. I'm going to be offering a 6-week online program to work on our mindset, whether it's just to lead our lives the way we want, whether it's to interact better with our horses. And also it's the setup to become a co-facilitator with equines for healing work. And there's going to be more in that too, because I'm really excited. It's all fitting together. Yes. So you can, send me a message later if you're interested in that, because there were a few people that were asking for a recording because they couldn't be here at this time. But before I'm not sure if I have any other directions. I'll have to look a little bit at the ideas that I wrote down. But do you ladies have any questions, comments, any heart resonation?
Hey, I have a question.
Okay.
When you were talking about Missy and the client that you were working with, you said that there was just a flick of her ear and a twitch in her eye or something to that effect,
Mm-hmm.
that you knew she was telling you how close you needed to be to support the client. Did I get
Well,
that right?
kind of. Missy was letting me know how close I needed to be able to support her, Missy the horse, as she supported the client.
Oh, okay. So how did you interpret that to mean that?
Because
Look
I
for
was,
yourself time or blink or whatever. I'm just curious. How did you know that that's what she was telling you?
I knew it because she was doing a great job of following the client's lead, and she was able to take security in her. And, I kind of will try to not disturb things, but move around when I'm doing a session so that I can see things from different angles.
Okay.
And I was backing up a little bit to kind of be able to get a broader perspective. And when I did that, Missy followed me with her ear, and she gave a couple quick blinks with her eye.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. So I moved closer, and her head lowered some.
Okay.
So that was how I read that situation.
Okay. I guess I missed that part of it, or I don't know if you said that part, but
I don't think I did, but I think it was the first time that I really was shown that my presence out there with a horse and a client was pretty important. It was not long after I had gotten Harley, and I was in the arena with a client, and I think we were just kind of brushing him because he was pretty shut down when I first got him. And I don't remember if I had to go to the bathroom or probably had to go in and blow my nose or something. And I went in the observation room, and I heard Harley calling, and we didn't have him on a lead, but he had started circling and, going all over the place in the arena. And I was like, wow. And so I came back out there, and he came up to me and stopped and went back into the mode that he was in before I went out there. And I was like, oh my gosh, boy, what a lesson that we have impact. And that's when I really started to pay more attention to how I could support my horses so that they could offer more of what they had innately to the client.
okay.
So that's how.
Makes sense. Trying to think there was something else I was going to ask you and I forgot to write it down.
I hate it when that happens. I think, Janice, you look pretty. Is something percolating there?
Yeah, there was. And I think it was just kind of on the heels of that, because, Hillary has said that, or some other people will be facilitators and do retreats and stuff. But, if they don't have their own horses or they're going off site, they'll utilize somebody else's. So kind of what's your kind of thoughts on that, of kind of going and partnering with horses that the facilitator maybe isn't unfamiliar with?
Well, I think that, there's so many different ways that you can incorporate the wisdom of horses in sessions. Mm-hmm. And you can learn a lot just by being on the other side of the fence and observing the herd behavior at times.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And you can also, you can kind of look at what horse approaches, what direction they're in, a little bit more like how we do the card readings. You pull a card and you kind of see what information is there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the, I think it's probably pretty unique, because teaching people how to extend invitations, how to interact with the horses. I don't really want to call it horsemanship because it puts it in a little bit of a box that it doesn't quite fit.
Sure.
But, you know, it's, although I still think that I like working with a person that owns their horse, we can bring some of this there in the scope of extending invitations to the horse and working specifically with that horse. You can still read a lot of the signs
Okay.
and be able to tell what the horse is saying. But I think, you know, like any partnership and relationship, when you put in a lot of time and trust, then it increases the magic factor, the likelihood to get
Sure.
those things that are pretty amazing. So I think you can do both, but I love my horses and I think I know them pretty well, and that's, you know, a lot of the offering, but I don't think it's, you can't do sessions with horses that aren't yours or that you don't have a lot of time in with, if that helps.
Yeah.
Because they kind of all have a basic language, don't you think? And, you know, the subtle differences, just like people have differences in how they react to things. But, you know, the basic language of the horse, I think, is kind of universal, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. It's, you know, the releasing work that I've kind of been obsessed with for so long. Well, yeah, a few years. You know, because like Missy, for example, I noted that when before she even exhibits a lick and a chew or yawn or any of those bigger things, or even the ripple in her muzzle, under her eye will just have a twitch. Like, you know, when you get one of those things that feels like somebody's poking you,
Yes.
her eye will do that. And so, you know, that just came from watching what happened. And so when you get tuned into those, what happens first, because that will be unique to each horse. But yeah, the how they respond to things and noticing, I think really paying attention in addition to the responses and releases of tension, just how their body is shaped. You know, are they kind of curved around you? Are they parallel? Are they curved away from you a little bit? You know, those things all, yes, that it's a international language. I can't think of the right words, but yeah.
Universal?
Yes, universal, that's it.
Yeah.
Janice, I think you're really good at that stuff anyway. I mean, you pick up on all kinds of things that, you know, that a lot of people don't pick up on, or maybe they do, but you voice it quicker than anybody else. So, I know you've been a great teacher for me in that kind of respect, and
Oh, really? Oh,
how I notice things now. So,
thank you. I'm aware of that.
Oh, I would second that. And your gift for language.
very, very good.
Yeah, you can. It's like you make beautiful necklaces stringing these really gems of words
Makes
together.
me so jealous because I can barely articulate half the time anyway.
Oh, it's
me.
Stop. You can so.
Well, I had somebody ask me, you know, I was out with her horse the other day, and I said, oh, this, you know, I think she's doing this because of this, and she says, how do you know that? And I really didn't know how to articulate that other than I can just tell by watching her.
Yeah,
well, so, true. And
actually, a very eloquent response. I just was like, I don't know.
Well, how about this? Because I'm glad you said that, because that's probably another one of the key things that I can include here is the more that we take away whatever is blocking us from staying in the present moment, and from really following what resonates with our hearts, that allows us to get in touch with and deepen our intuition. And so, you know, I think that you always had a strong intuition, well, always since I've known you, but watching, you know, you've been watching so much and how you interact with your horses, I think you follow that much more. And I'm guessing, I mean, you can let me know, but you get more intuitive hits, so to speak. And I think that's exactly what happened when you're on the field. Well, you know, our intuition is kind of a mix of an inner knowing and an experience, and that which we can't explain. But
I had some very good role models.
yeah, but you know, you're the one doing the work,
Yeah.
and or doing the non-work sometimes, allowing for things to happen.
Okay.
But because you've spent so much time allowing yourself to allow your intuition, that's how you knew that.
Just becoming aware of my intuition, I think, has been helpful too. I mean, I always kind of knew things, but I never really understood why I knew them.
Mm-hmm.
Or now it makes more sense to me now because I understand the why behind it. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Well, it does. And I'm guessing you're also, especially with, you know, doing energy work on the side or in the middle or wherever, but you're also, you don't have to have as many whys to follow your intuition.
True, but it was really critical in the beginning to know those whys, to know that it was okay to follow that intuition.
Oh, yeah.
Because
sure.
It's not, like you said, we're on the fringe, right? So it wasn't something that was ever comfortable by any stretch because, you know, people think you're nuts.
Right.
So you don't tend to, you know, you want to kind of follow along with the norm, I guess. And now I don't care, but.
Well, and I think sometimes it is, yes, follow along with the norm, but I know for me, you know, when kind of like a little bit of that movie trailer, but I oftentimes, I really value having a mentor, somebody that I can follow. And yes, you know, I used to think that I just had to follow somebody completely, and clearly that didn't work. But what I really, really, really want is to be really, really good with horses. And,
right.
You know, it wasn't easy to find, and sometimes it wasn't possible at all to find people that were teaching what really resonated with my heart. That's why in my own journey, I don't even know, 5, 6, 7 times I quit riding dressage, even though I was still kind of an outlier in the dressage world. You know, one of the things that happened to me was riding the crew and selection of horses that I had the fortune to work with. I would get them more relaxed in their body, a little more supple, able to move forward. And then this was the time, okay, well, now you're supposed to ask for more. You're supposed to get collection. And all right, so now you need more in your hands and you need to set the reins and these things. And I wouldn't do it. I could, but I wouldn't, because I didn't want to wreck everything that I had spent time building. Now, I kept coming back to it sometimes because I knew there was some way to ask for more and to build upon that really beautiful foundation that we had established, but I couldn't find anybody speaking the right dialect. And so that's where, you know, just following what the horse is offering, you know, and understanding. I think it's very valuable to understand biomechanics for the horses and the basic overall moving. And by watching horses a lot, you can pick that up, but also with somebody kind of showing you, all right, well, see now how, you know, the withers are starting to elevate and the croup is sinking a little bit, or the bend in their body, how it looks. What is their jaw doing? then we're able to build on that and put the pieces together in a way that speaks to us. And that's, that I think that's one of the reasons behind this call too, is I want more horses to feel valued, and I want more people to feel like they can chase what resonates with their hearts and form a relationship that they want with their horse. It doesn't have to be in somebody else's box.
Perfect.
Yes.
So sorry, I don't know if I took that question somewhere. I think there was a question there or a comment, but I
don't
think.
Remember. Sorry.
No.
But that would be a great little course for you to do too, the whole biomechanics thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that's really important.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's not as easy to find information on that as you would think.
No, I know.
Yeah, maybe that'll follow mindset.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, and I think one of working a lot with riders with fear issues, because of course we know that if we're feeling apprehension, the horse is going to pick up on it in some way. Well, anything from apprehension to out and out terror. I come in contact with people feeling. And so when we're a little bit unbalanced, obviously the horse will pick up on that, and depending on their makeup, their traits, their experiences, they'll react in some ways to our imbalances, and it kind of results in them feeling insecure, and not insecure or not safe. I guess that's insecure. And actually it was Zook, my little brown dog, that taught me so much. He really capitalized on what my red horse was already showing me. But when you think of a scared dog, or when I used to think of a scared dog, mostly it was a dog that would shake, that would kind of cower, that would hide behind things. Well, enter into my life this dog that when he feels insecure, he goes at you and after things. Mm-hmm. And so he really helped me develop a deeper finesse of how I would label things, and to think of how can I help, going back to horses for a minute, or even him, how can I help him feel more secure in this situation? Instead of, oh gosh, I can't think, especially around a training barn or the warm-up arena in a show, my horse is being a jerk, or my horse is dumb, I can't get it to do this, it won't load in the trailer. All of these things that, somewhere in that horse's world, something isn't right. And even if it started with, because there are those horses, and I think I might own one, that they're smart enough to figure a way out of things, but something started in the first place for them to want a way out. If you think about what horses tolerate from us, putting all kinds of contraptions on them, at times putting them in different spaces. Sometimes they don't have open access to food. It's just when we can or choose to feed them. And they still want to be around us for some reason. I mean, thank goodness, because I can't imagine a deer letting us saddle it and ride it. But thank goodness that horses have these huge, generous hearts, and they offer us another chance. And that, especially with Sunshine, my red horse, he could have hurt me badly had I not listened to him, because I don't think he's a horse that his shutdown would be, oh, I'm just gonna quietly do what you want. And it would be like, no. And fortunately, even though I didn't know quite, years ago, I didn't quite know what to put in place to offer him a better sense of security, I knew what I couldn't do. And, now him agreeing to so much more, including offering for sessions, right, Janice?
Yes.
It's just really cool when we can frame their choices in a way of how can we help them feel more secure, which I think also going into the healing work a little bit, it's when we know better, we do better too. And giving ourselves a break, because, just looking at the horse world, there were some times where, I used my hands in a manner on a horse with a bit in their mouth that I would not do that anymore. And I'm not at all saying that it was something horrible or they would have turned me into the SPCA or whatever, but it just didn't feel right to my heart, and I wouldn't do that now. But I can't keep beating myself up for that, because at that time, again, I wanted that beautiful movement in the horses that I could see in some of the dressage work. I wanted that so badly, and I didn't know how to get it yet. And, I'm still learning. And probably going to have a lot more learning experiences to chalk up on there. But giving myself the same grace that I can offer to the horses has really helped me on this journey. I mean, hey, I'm here on this call, right?
Yes.
It's kind of like you're rewiring their neural pathways too, when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because, when you're talking about sunshine, you're describing like people, like fight, flight, or freeze, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Annie was the freeze and he was the fight, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
or flight, I don't know.
Yeah.
Chamba's the flight. Unfortunately.
Well, but there again, I think, sometimes that type of reaction is a little bit easier to read at times than a horse that has that checked out, shut down, nobody home look.
You think?
Mm-hmm. Because they give you more to read. And just saying that because, when I first started noticing about Annie, how stoic she was, how she would do absolutely anything, but there was no, I don't think at that time that I really was noticing. So she was the one that I started noticing the ripples in the muzzle, because there was like nothing happening in her face. And there were like those little ripply movements in the fine muscles of her muzzle. And then I think I said then I would call her bunny lips, because she wouldn't quite lick or chew, but the front of her nose would start to twitch. And I don't even remember exactly how long it took for some of that to emerge, because, I had gone in that confidence clinic with her, and she had done everything on the ground and in the saddle, but there was that element missing, that element of partnership, bond, fun. And so at that time I was like, well, how in the world do I get her to show something? And so I just paused and waited, and kind of in my mind I set that intention, or in my heart maybe set that intention, that this is a safe place and I want to know your opinions. Because again, being housed in the healing work and valuing the wisdom that the horses have to share, I want them to be able to express their opinions. So Chamba definitely expresses opinions, right?
Oh yeah.
Is she getting better at coming up to you?
She is.
Yay!
And I think she's feeling a little bit better too. So I don't know if that's part of it. I'll know, down the road, I guess.
Well, I think you mean feeling better physically?
Yeah.
Well, I think that that has to be part of it, because if she's compromised to whatever extent physically, that compromises her ability to flee. Right?
To do what?
To flee. Her go-to getaway method to feel safe.
Oh, I think she can still flee. I mean,
well, right, but it's not
instinctual. But
if you have a sprained ankle, you're probably going to be more careful about the choices that you make. Like you wouldn't decide necessarily walk down a dark alley anyway, but you're not going to decide that when you have a sprained ankle and you can't get yourself to safety quicker.
True.
Right? So I think that they, again, because of their prey nature, if something isn't optimal physically, it's going to affect their mental state.
True. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So that was it. That was the point.
Okay.
That if she's feeling better physically, it will allow her more safety around you to feel safe.
Okay.
And also
yeah, she's just been a lot softer.
Yeah, well, and you've set that intention that you want to see that softness. Yep. And done the work, so to speak, to offer her a place that she can step into with softness. It didn't just happen.
No, I feel like it's kind of coming back to where kind of we used to be. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
So yeah, she came off the round bale today towards me. So that's the first time in a while. She'd come off if I go all the way up there, but today she came away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Walked to me. So.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Exactly.
Deep sighs. Now
Yep.
yawns and licks and chews, right?
Yep. Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, any final thoughts before we let you ladies loose to enjoy the rest of your day?
I don't think so. It was good.
Yeah.
All right, well, Janice, I hope you get your
Informative. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for showing up. I really appreciate your input and just being in the space.
Yeah.
I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah.
Oh, most definitely. I think I might have to keep it up.
Yay.
Yay.
All right. Well, I will talk to you ladies later.
All right. Have a good rest of the day.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.